Hey there and welcome. Let me just share my screen here. Oh, there we go. Well, gosh, we have a good one for you today. I know that all of these lectures are very, very valuable to you, so be sure to watch each of them, even though there's, of course, overlap in each of them, because we cover a little bit of all the areas in each of them. There's valuable information that's unique to each of them as well. So make sure to watch a few of them. It'll really help you a lot. So today is career reinvention, preparing your career for a new industry, preparing the narrative for a new industry. How are you going to talk about yourself? Well, what you're going to run into is objections. I object. You don't seem to have this industry background, or I object to your lack of experience in this type of a role, or I think you really know all the potential objections as they might go toward a new direction for you. Let me just, as I realize I forgot to clean my glasses today. Let's just make sure we can see as clearly as possible without the fingerprints. Much better. So as we sit and think about that, another way to sum that up is you can't do that. I don't think. I don't see that background. I don't know why you even have approached me. You know, as we try to evolve our career into a new direction, as we try to reinvent ourselves, we run into this a lot. Now, I've done a great many things over the course of my career, very different from one another. Each time I've had to reinvent myself like ground up, going a whole new John to go this way, a whole new John to go that way. It's not as easy as really seeing whatever job we want, going after it and really, it's just going to get that job, because, everyone's sitting back doing the same thing you're doing. They're hitting that darn button. And for the most part, that's going by the way of HR, who is looking for people that seem to be cookie cutter perfect. And if you're trying to reinvent your career, you are certainly not cookie cutter perfect. Now, the secret that you may not like in this entire process is you can really, in their minds, you can really only do whatever you've done before. Complete nonsense. Now, if that were true, how could anyone ever have a first day in a new profession? How could anyone even have a first day in their very first profession if you can only do what you've done before? So while this may be how people generally act, they're very open for new ideas. But this approach is going to leave us in a pretty unhappy place, because we're going to seem like, well, more of that for you. Now, if you've seen my resume renovation lecture, you probably heard me mention this one, but worked with an individual, really nice background, working for some very expensive law firms. And, there's law firms and there's law firms. These were law firms. Ooh, money. Okay, great law firms. And resume, original, by the way, all full of wall-to-wall text. So people pick up the resume and all they see is big, impressive law firms, big, impressive law firms. I don't even see your story. More law firm for you. A lot of us face that because of how we tell our story. You're going to have to kind of break out of that. That it's a rut we get stuck in. You're going to have to tell your story in a different way, especially if going in a new direction. Get over whatever is holding you back. Understand there's a way to solve it. Now, who is our competitor? We have to look out there and see who the competitors are. It hurts my soul to have to say this, but about half of the workforce out there is only mediocre. Let me read this one. I love this one. I love to read it. Of only moderate quality, not very good, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, uninspired, undistinguished, indifferent, unexceptional, unremarkable, run-of-the-mill, okay, pedestrian, come see, come saw, plain vanilla, not up to much, bush league. I missed a couple of those in there. You get the idea. Now, that's what's wrong, in my view, with country, economy, companies, all of this mediocrity. I know we like to think of ourselves as the very best, and in ways we really are, but there's so much mediocrity out there. How do we get past this? Good question. I don't have the solution for that one. A lot of people are working on that one. But if you understand this basic premise that half the workforce is mediocre, what do you have to be? Let's get over it. A little tiny bit better than mediocre. Little tiny bit. If you're a little tiny bit better than mediocre, you realize you're ahead of more than half the people already. If you simply put a little heart, soul into whatever it is you do, it doesn't really matter, even if you don't want to do it again. Just put a little heart and soul into everything that you do. Naturally, you'll rise to be that top 1, 2, 3%, and people are not going to think of you as mediocre. case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you're suffering with kind of restaging your story, resetting your value, really, in my view, resume has to be the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper that they can see in seconds and go, wow, that's a person I have to speak with. That's a person I can't not speak with. Now, what we do on the LinkedIn side, I'm a big believer, is really needs to be the polar opposite to that approach. Resume, the single sales sheet idea. Watch the resume renovation lecture. LinkedIn, how do you take that single sales sheet idea, bring it over to LinkedIn as the backbone, the structural system. But then you have to add back all the layers of just the interesting parts of the story until you develop it into a full-out three-dimensional sales brochure all about you, naturally driving the reader to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I work with that person or hire that person, add that person to my team, best business decision I'll make today. Of course, I ended up being VP over all 100 offices that I was working with, besides being a recruiter on a desk, traditional headhunter. Also was the national trainer, training every single recruiter across 100 offices. Really how hiring actually works, which is really not how people think it works, or wouldn't likely need a lecture, a workshop like this one to help us kind of navigate. A few things that will help you in addition to today's lecture. You can navigate over to my LinkedIn and get some very good articles that will help you avoid some of the biggest problems that you run into in job search. On my website itself, that's selfrecruiter.com, about halfway down the page, you can also see my full LinkedIn lecture, both with me and the slides, and see me big or the slides big. You can really use that as a start and stop tutorial as you reinvent your value, redevelop your value statements, all on your LinkedIn side as well. So if we're going to reinvent, we better have some opinion. So what do you do better, or what would you like to do better than somebody else? So you're going to have to understand why you either are or will be that standout in the field. By the way, I'm never really afraid that there's somebody else with more experience, everything else. Well, there's always someone else with more experience, no matter what it is we do. You have to think about how you're going to compete and how you can change things even as you're navigating them. Really, it's almost in reinvention, it's almost this concept of allowing yourself to think of career almost like a lucid dream. You know, lucid dream, and some of us have them and some of us don't. That's a dream where you become aware that you're actually dreaming and you can shape where the dream goes. So if we think about gaining a small amount of control in the dream world and what happens there, it's the same type of thing in the real world. Let's just begin to think about what might be possible and what can change. So in thinking of all this, well, it's not really possible. Oh, but if it was, allow yourself to think. So who are these target companies that you're dying to go work for that you may not have what seems to be the right background for? Or what are your target or dream jobs that you're after, thinking of, oh, if I could just become that, if I could just become this. You know, interesting enough, and I'm going to share my background a little bit later in today's lecture, all of my background actually. But, you know, gosh, when I think back to being a teenager and growing up, and, you know, it was a different world, pre-internet, obviously, and everybody lived in the bubble of what was only around them, whatever we're exposed to. But my gosh, I remember seeing articles about career coaches off in some far off place like New York, thinking, oh my gosh, so interesting. How does someone become that? And I certainly did not pursue it, but, you know, it never left my subconscious, because obviously I ended up here, and you're going to see that whole journey. I'll lay that out for you. But yeah, that's part of the lucid dream idea of what would we do? What could we do? How can we refocus our energies? And the biggest thing is to look at some of the best people out there. Oh, I know you're afraid because you're going, well, I don't have the background, but I want to get into that. Okay, well, what do the best people have? Can we go get some of that? Can we go get a little bit of that on our journey to essentially learning how to be a little bit of a chameleon? Oh, there we go. A little bit of a chameleon. So we have to think about how we're going to chart our course of this career transition, how we're going to make our way as we become something else, as we go through a transformation. This transformation, this dramatic change, this metamorphosis, not only is going to have to happen on the resume, your LinkedIn profile, even how you speak about yourself, but really probably going to have to change in your outreach process. Now, we're not really going to cover too much of the outreach process here today. I do recommend deep listening to both Supercharging Your Job Search lecture. That has a lot in there about the outreach process, as does my LinkedIn lecture. A lot about reverse searching, finding decision makers, and reaching out to them directly with a script that you'll have to write that will work. A lot of information in those lectures. Please do watch them. They'll help you. Now, we're this product, so that's where it all has to start. If I want to reinvent that product, I have to think about other uses. You know, historically, if we go back like 100 years, there were a lot of very strange things in some of our products. Some of our products actually had mercury in them. Like, what? A drink with mercury in it? Sounds very healthful. Not. So yes, over time, many things have changed, and you can change as well. You have to think about small little changes, changing perception. It's part of how you're going to take control of the discussion of you, but you're going to have some idea in the first place about who you are compared to these competitors. But don't fall in just that trap. Your goal is not simply to be as interchangeable as possible with the competitors, because if that's what you produce, if that's how you reinvent yourself, I'm going to pay you less. Did you notice they're all the same? You don't want less number 2? I'll take number 3. I'll take number 5. I'll take number 1. I'll take anybody that's taken less, because in my view, you're all the same. You have to not only have that perspective of how you elevate yourself to be interchangeable with the competitor, but how do I also highlight and elevate my brand as something unique, special, which helps me step out of line from the competitors. Now I'm going to play a little bit of a video here. It's very short, but I do want you to begin to think about inspiration. I'm going to bring this one full screen, and I'll be right back after. Let's just make sure my volume is up as well so we don't miss anything. Let's go full screen, and here we go. Be right back right after this plays.
What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? Let's suppose I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we haven't the faintest idea what we want to do. So I always ask the question, what would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Well, it's so amazing. As a result of our kind of educational system, crowds of students say, well, we'd like to be painters, we'd like to be poets, we'd like to be writers, but as everybody knows, you can't earn any money that way. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. I say, do you want to teach in a riding school? Let's go through with it. What do you want to do? When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that. And forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And after all, if you do really like what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is, you can eventually you could eventually become a master of it. The only way to become a master of something is to be really with it. And then you'll be able to get a good fee for whatever it is. So don't worry too much. Somebody's interested in everything. Anything you can be interested in, you'll find others in. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on spending things you don't like, doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children, educating them, to live the same sort of lives we live, in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children, to bring up their children to do the same thing. So it's all wretched, no vomit. It never gets there. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?
Obviously not my piece. That was just right off of Facebook. Thanks to Alan Watts, who was the narrator there. Some really great points there. What do you desire? Let me just put my mic back in the right place so you hear me nice and clear, hopefully. You know, life's a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death. Well, if you know that phrase, you know the movie, and that's Auntie Mame. Now, that particular story, Auntie Mame, has several versions of the movie, but really there's only one version, and that is Rosalind Russell's Auntie Mame, 1958. By the way, that particular movie, there's a reason I'm mentioning it here. There's a wonderful, wonderful story and thread throughout the entire movie, which is about 180 minutes or something like that, depending on which cut you're watching. There's longer versions, shorter versions, everything else. But you know what? This is an individual in a very different time than now that suddenly lost everything and had to reinvent themselves. They had to do all sorts of things that they never thought. They had to become a telephone switch operator at Macy's, which they didn't do too well at, by the way. Gosh, Macy's was my first job in New York, holiday season at the register with that line, 8 hours, 8 hours of line that never goes away. By the way, a lot of workers wouldn't like that, but my gosh, I certainly did. And I got so many job offers simply because I understood how to not only help the customer I was helping, but acknowledge and deal with the other customers while they were waiting, collecting up lots of business cards. After one of these lectures where I mentioned that before, somebody emailed me and said, gosh, I did the same thing, but I didn't get any offers. What did you bring to the table? Did we bring mediocrity to the table, or did you bring passion to the table? Because even though that's not a very exciting job to work the register at Macy's, if you do it with passion, boy, people notice. Auntie Mame, a lot of great lessons throughout the entire thing, both for life and career reinvention. So maybe we have to go back and do a little bit of a fact finding. Maybe you've been a shoplifting monitor. I want to know everything you've done. Don't hide those things away. Maybe you've been a shoplifting monitor, standing around trying to catch people stealing things. I wish that didn't go automatically. Let's just see. Well, it already did go automatically. I can't get back. You saw the things that were up there. Or maybe you've been a business owner or a student or a retail manager or a digital tech of some sort or a computer services manager. Maybe a general manager of some sort. Maybe that's your background. Or maybe you've been a recruiter or a headhunter. Or maybe you've been a recruiting trainer or training manager. Maybe you've been a VP of a 100-office company. Maybe you founded 2 companies. Any of this sounding familiar? This is all my background. I'm now an author, career coach, and speaker. And yet every single one of those things, and you can see some of them, oh, I missed the shoe salesman, the retail manager, the chef. I have done a great many things over the course of my career because I am not as young as I may appear. So yeah, I have a wealth of experience. How are you going to transform that story? How are you going to reinvent yourself? Let's go back and really understand, because you know what? It is your job to teach them how to select you. That's your job in the interview process. Even if it's into a brand new area that you want to transition to and there's tough competitors out there, there is some unique reason why you could be more valuable than just those interchangeable cookie cutter people. So first thing we have to do is really close down for a personal inventory. Oh, just like you see these retail stores, you go there, not usually during a pandemic, but you see the retail store, the door's locked. It says, oh, closed for inventory today. They want to go back and really find out what's really in the store. Not what we believe is in the store, but what really is in the store. You have to do the same thing with your story. So story is a tough word because we sometimes attach that to storyteller, and then we begin to think it's not true. No, I'm talking about it has to be a true story, but my gosh, I could tell you the same story in a very dull way that doesn't work, or I could simply tell you the same story in a very engaging way that has you on the edge of your chair. Your story, by the way, is not that you're capable and qualified. Don't mishear that. That part has to be there. I have to believe you're capable or qualified, or there will never be a discussion. Your story, though, is why are you interesting? What makes you tick? You know, there's only 2 reasons you ever get hired. 2 reasons you ever get hired. Number 1 reason above everything is chemistry. Chemistry fit above every other part of the background. Number 2 reason you get hired is confidence in you. And both the chemistry and the confidence piece come before your credentialing, the background, who you work for, everything else you did. You can begin to see why you can transition into new areas. If I have produced or done amazing things over there, even though they're unrelated, that's a good track record that if you give me this shot, I'm also going to do some amazing things, especially if I had to reinvent myself earlier. So the how are you interesting, what makes you tick, that could be something to do with your professional life. It could be something that has nothing to do with your professional life. If you go back and rediscover everything you've ever done, just like that laundry list that I put down there, really you just filter it through a singular lens or singular question. What rises to the level that will help convince them it's the best business decision they're going to make that day if they choose to hire me? Those things begin to elevate your story. This is how you begin to chameleon your way to a new career. Key here is you go back to every single contribution you've had, the ones you decide to include in the story. Obviously, in my full background, I don't include every one of those roles because it doesn't do anything for me, but it's in this lecture because it's a great illustration of what you need to do. So really, I need to go back to every piece of my story that's going to stay included, and I have to tell the best darn accurate story of contribution ever. Even though they are unrelated roles that I never want again, when they see me rising, the cream rising to the top type thing, oh, top 1, 2, 3%, I can see it, role after role in different directions, then they begin to have confidence in this new direction I'm charting, this new direction I'm trying to go. But you're going to have to know yourself. You're going to have to know why you're valuable and more valuable than those cookie cutter people that want that same job and have the experience. That means you're also going to have to find the magical spot, just like Alan Watts was narrating in that video, where you're not really chasing the money. Oh my gosh, I live in New York. I understand that we need the money. We can't survive without the money. But if you're only chasing the money, and that was really Alan Watts' point, you're going to end up in a very unhappy place in life. And by the way, I certainly at parts of my life have chased the money because, gosh, those bills were due and had to deal with that stuff. But ultimately what you need to do is find the right direction for you, the one you're passionate about, the one you're interested in, and get as close to that. So what do you love to do? What do you do well? And you're going to have to be able to get paid to do it. Just because you do it well doesn't mean you're going to be able to get paid. Where's your passion focus? Try to get as close to your passion as possible. That produces a different outcome. I hope your skills include some of what's necessary for that. What else can you do? Even what are you afraid of? This is all a brainstorming to figure out what you should do next and how to reinvent yourself. That what are you afraid of is very interesting. When I first, I went to school twice, went through the normal run and then ended up in a 9-year business with my family. And then once that wrapped up, I went back to school again for another round because I had a new awakening, a new passion, and had to take some prerequisites for what I was going to do. And one of them was a speech class. Well, if you've watched some of my other lectures, I've certainly confessed this year quite a bit that in reality, no matter what you see here, I'm shy and introverted, which usually makes people burst out laughing or accuse me of not being truthful. We're all multifaceted creatures. This is me too, even though I'm still shy and introverted under the surface. So back down to the last one on the list, what are you afraid of? Boy, gosh, I stepped into that speech class, never having taken one before. I was also about 10 years older than everybody else in the class, because don't forget the part of the story, I went back to school for it. But this was required for my next step. I had to go take this. And I'm like, how bad can it be? I can get through this class. And you know what I did? I followed the recipe. An instructor gave us a nice recipe of how to make a successful one. I did some more background research to fill in the details. I constructed my talk, and I went up to the podium, and like everybody else or all the smart people, I grabbed the podium, tried to still the shaking, this eternal shaking body over the nerves of having to step up in front of this class and give the talk. And I gave my talk, and I wrapped it up and wanted to vomit. And the other students were like, oh my gosh, you're so good. You're so good. I'm like, are you sick? I was inside that one. I know how that went. All I did was follow the recipe. Yeah, if I followed the recipe, it was impressive compared to the fellow students that didn't follow the recipe. didn't understand how to keep the audience engaged, even though they were scared to do it. Never could have imagined I'd become a public speaker because I was terrified. I'm so glad to get out of that class. Sometimes what you're afraid of points you in the right direction. There may be a reason why you're doing that. So here's another way to think of it. This is another piece that you've probably seen many times. Just grabbed this off of Facebook a couple years ago. It's about trying to find that sweet spot. I love what I do. The world certainly needs it. Getting paid for it, well, that's a little more difficult. On the speaking end, the dirty little secret of what I do is most organizations do not pay you anything. They really just take advantage of your ability to speak and present to up their own individual brands. I understand it because there's so many other speakers willing to speak for free. Yeah, that's part of the deal. It's the way it works. But my individual clients are all stressed because they're all in job search. That puts you in a financial bind. So I love it. I do it well. The world needs it. Not everybody can pay for it. And that you see the smaller words here, and we'd like to get it away from something that is vocation or charity, because we all have bills to pay. So the closer you get to that sweet spot of finding the balance, the happier that bliss spot you'll be. Add into that a little bit of thought, a little bit of strategy, this new direction, the new thing you want to do, combined with what your background is. Which employers would benefit most from all of that, plus your passion for the new field? Those cookie cutter interchangeable people that have done the job before, rarely do they bring genuine passion and excitement. Someone that brings genuine passion and excitement will produce a different outcome. So begin to think about those things that will help you bring into focus who you should approach. Add to that layer another layer of the how are you interesting, what makes you tick, and then you begin to think about how you're going to chameleon the rest of the way. As I looked 10, 11 years ago, as I looked toward this direction that you see now, and I thought, oh, well, I'm done with recruiting. I had a great run in recruiting, but I've taken it all the way to the VP of the company, and I want to do something else. And really, the rest of that story was we spent a year trying to negotiate a purchase of the company. The president and I were going to buy the firm as partners from the founder. But you know what? The founder couldn't sign. Happens a lot, by the way. The founder's identity is so connected to the organization that they, even though they have nothing to do at that stage with the day-to-day run of the operation, really, other than being a figurehead, inspirational picture, essentially, can't let go because there's their identity. Of course, I spent a year trying to negotiate that, and when it wasn't going to come to fruition, I had to go. And so I left because I either had to be paid properly, which I was about 30 grand underpaid, or I had to make some move like buying the company. And so I left without a plan. not always. I'm like, well, now what? Now what am I going to do? And that was a pretty good paying job, even though I was underpaid. And I thought about really utilizing what was the best things I enjoyed about recruiting, and it really is the teaching, inspiring, motivating piece, not the actual recruiting piece. And so I thought, you know what? I can do the same thing, helping individuals probably sleep much better at night because I can help a lot higher percentage of the people I deal with than in recruiting. In recruiting, it's a very tiny percentage you actually help. Kind of eats away at your soul after a while. Well, I escaped with my soul intact. I had to reinvent. You know what I did? I looked at Tony Robbins. I looked at all these other people with big names out there. What do they have that I don't have? Oh, they have a book. Well, I can write a book. Pretty good book, by the way. Self-Recruiter. I would check it out. They have media hits. They have media hits. I don't have any media hits. Not brain surgery to figure out how to get those things if you work backward, trying to go, how could I get that? Didn't have a speaking set of lectures yet. And I'm like, well, I can go give lectures. Who could I speak for? Who could I speak with? And suddenly you go and approach those and pitch the idea. And before long, voila, you've charted your transition into a totally new field. So yeah, you're going to have to go through a similar transformation process. You're going to have to think about using all the ideas of becoming a self-recruiter, this concept of networking a different way, also the concept of always keeping one eye on that toughest competitor imaginable. Those scary people, oh, they're going for the job. Oh, forget it. You can beat those people very easily. Those perfect people really they suffer from ego and arrogance. They wake up in the morning, they splash the water on their face, they go, oh, who are they going to hire? They're going to hire me. And then they don't really do their preparation. They don't do the homework. So a little bit of strategy, a little bit of planning, and some pretty good communication skills, boy, you can outmaneuver them very, very quickly. If you stick your head in the sand, they will outmaneuver you and get hired over you every single time. Now, once you understand who you are, who your market is, where you'd like to transition to, what you're missing, then you begin to work on your personal branding. That means your story across the resume, across your LinkedIn, your cover letter, and how you sew that all together, how you really create an epiphany moment, essentially, of where it occurs to you that this new direction is the direction for you, and you're excited by all the value you bring. That's your job. Teach them how to select you. Everything else on this list is part of your personal branding. So make sure to go in and get your resume to work for you. Watch the resume renovation lecture. It'll help you. I hope you notice here, not a single sentence on any resume I would produce. You know, we're in a world where no one will read. They won't read a message any longer, not even a text message. Just got a message from one of my close friends going, did you read my last message? I'm like, well, they didn't say last. You didn't read my message? I'm like, well, yeah, like 5 messages ago, I have like 25 chat streams with different people, and 5 messages ago on your stream, you happened to mention something that passed over quickly. Yeah, even myself, same trap. So in terms of resume or anything else, you have to really do the work for them. It's very similar to a baby. Can a baby eat by itself? Not really. You need to spoon feed that baby. Same thing here. You need to learn how to spoon feed your value right into their minds in seconds so it comes to life. Small changes change perception. If you need help on the resume, tune into the resume renovation lecture. It's really going to help you a lot. In terms of LinkedIn, of course, the LinkedIn video is right on my website, selfrecruiter.com, halfway down that page. Use it as the start and top tutorial. LinkedIn has to become this polar opposite to your resume, not just that dazzling single sheet that makes them jump out of the chair, but where's the full out rest of the story? It's really the opposite of how most people will use their LinkedIn. Next piece of your personal branding you have to pay close attention to is your signature block. Now, people might, signature block? When you open up a new email to send someone an email, is it blank? You don't have a signature block. I don't care if that's a desktop, laptop, tablet, who makes it. None of it matters. Every single one of those devices takes a signature block. So think about what you might do and what you might put there. At a bare minimum, you could have a basic signature block like this with something that would motivate people. Oh, connect with me on LinkedIn at. So not only does it have your name, your title, which begins to set the brand, maybe even some dazzling little phrase about you below that, not really listed here. Your phone number, your email. What? I have to put my email in my email? No. For you, I'll hit the special key. I'll toggle, I'll copy. Yes, attention to detail. This is a demonstration of how your follow-up will be. If you have any other pieces that have to be in there, but also close with your LinkedIn address line with a motivational piece. That is your 3-dimensional sales brochure, which should be traveling with every single personal or business email that ever leaves your fingertips. Here is my ridiculously long email signature. I grew up Catholic, which means I know all about guilt. My gosh, first time I wrote this out, I'm like, oh, what will my mother think? Wow, John, looks like you made it. Yeah, it's very tough. You know, we're not really Kardashians. A few of us, not really Kardashians. But you know what? There's something to learn there. Modesty and humility, first off, are great traits for human beings. For every other aspect of our life, but not job search, not career. These 2 areas, even if it's culturally abhorrent to you to be this way, you're going to have to give yourself permission to step out of your comfort zone and really own your value. You're going to have to drink enough of the Kool-Aid so you believe in you more than the next 5 or 6 people. And every single thing that you built, you earned. So yeah, even though it's embarrassing to show these things, oh my gosh, I can't show that, can I? You earned it. You need to use it. It's your value. And it will help kick your competitor to the curb. Next, what we're going to do in helping your transition become real, once you fix the resume, once you fix the LinkedIn profile, and don't forget I work directly with clients, so if that's a real challenge for you, gosh, you can work with me directly and I can do it for you, really elevating your brand. Everything's over on selfrecruiter.com under the services tab. If you need to talk before you select your package, send me a quick email, direct email. My email address is listed everywhere. So the next thing we're going to do, once we have those items fixed, is we have to change the mindset out in the world. And you do that with social media marketing. So it's using digital tools across a number of platforms, but at a bare minimum, certainly LinkedIn and also certainly Twitter. Almost lose it every time I mention that one. I don't mean the like 154 tweets over the weekend type thing. I mean, what you decide to share on LinkedIn should be allowed with a single toggle, even on the free version of LinkedIn, to seamlessly flow out to Twitter to essentially double your advertising or marketing effect of you. If you need more on that part and how all of that works, check my career evolution lecture, which is really my part 2 to my LinkedIn lecture. Once you have the right kind of sales brochure for yourself all built out, now how do I build and manage one of those social media marketing campaigns? The career evolution lecture will give you much more detail. Information is the new currency. You know, the more information you have access to, the more likely you are to be able to leverage it to your benefit. Now, these are my real numbers from today. 11,901 connections, 3 levels out. That's better than 21 million people. I can see every stitch of information on 21 million people. Oh my gosh, how could that change my job search life? You want to chart your course to a new direction? You can go pull up every single star in that field and understand, well, how do they talk about their background? What do they do? What, you know, that'll guide you quite a bit on your communicating. Same way that I looked at other people that already had elevated public perceptions of themselves out there as I began to be a public speaker. Then what you do is you let whatever content you put together begin to flow across whatever channels you use. Now, yes, mine are full of me because I'm a public speaker, but imagine every one of these is a story, article, book, or event that's exactly about the new direction that you'd like. Really, it's the same thing as them looking over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. What is drawing your focus? By the way, passion does not require payment. Oh, but no one's hired me yet. You know what? They're never going to hire you if you don't demonstrate some passion. By the way, these lectures here, there's no payment here. These are all free of charge. I certainly have lots of passion, even though there's no payment. So think about that. They need to see a demonstration of you living and breathing your profession, which does not require payment. And then they begin to think more highly of you than that cookie cutter professional that has done it before, but doesn't seem to even be involved in their career. Now we just have to hit that chessboard. Really, that's some strategic sharing. This strategic sharing is really going to help us. Now, let me give you a little bit more detail, but don't forget to check out the Career Evolution lecture. It's a whole 60 plus minutes all on this. So the basics are simple. I'm going to do about 2 hours of homework where I'm going to sit down. I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to click the news tab. I'm going to put in some keywords about the new direction that I want. And from that, what I'm going to find is all sorts of articles that talk about the challenges, the players, or the new direction. Those are all things I can share and comment in on. I can go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon and look up the right books for my new direction and share those because they all have a link. I can look up across various sites on the internet to find out what events, probably more virtual these days, but what events are going on for that new direction in the next 30, 60, 90 days. All of them have websites already there. You collect this whole mix of 25 to 30 items up. You simply take whatever the title is, stick it in quotes. In front of it, you put 3, 4, 5, 6 words of opinion. What a great take on. Not sure I agree with. Couldn't disagree more. For best practices for exactly what I do or would like to do with a link. My gosh, it doesn't matter the quality of these articles. They are a device that has to be centered in the right area. You can comment good, bad, or ugly. By the way, if you don't comment up front before the title, it has almost zero effect on you. There's no stickiness there. Share it 4 to 6 times a day like breathing. That is 2 minutes out of your entire job search day to reshift your direction in a new direction and have people think of you very, very differently. So social media sharing, it requires us to begin to think about things like a storyteller. How do I make this more interesting? I still have to be truthful, but the whole point is to showcase my assets. I might pick some of the articles, books, or events because of that. I'm going to allow myself to have as rose-colored glasses as possible, so there's enough wiggle room. Still has to be truthful, but enough wiggle room. And then it's your job to kind of set and create that atmosphere. That's what all this kind of sharing does. Make sure you understand why you've chosen certain platforms, if they meet the goals, if your target audience is using that platform. Make sure all of that, and again, much deeper discussion of this in the Career Evolution lecture. Be persuasive. Your job isn't to be, gosh, please give me a chance. You know what? Never giving you a chance. It's not going to work that way. I don't roll the dice and take a chance myself. You have to convince me that it is the best decision I'll make today if I roll that dice on you. But I'm never going to put it in their brain that they're rolling the dice, because there's no risk. You go with me, you're going to have a very different positive result, even much more than those cookie cutter people. You know, so those cookie cutter people, while they may look comforting in the hiring process at first, really most times they tend to bring baggage with them and bad habits with them. And those things are so difficult to correct compared to someone that is fresh, energized, passionate, and really has conviction that they're going to produce much more outcome than the other person. Be persuasive. That's your job. Your job isn't to go, oh, please like me. No, convince me, convince me. Every single one of these things is a nudge. It's how you create engagement, which is much closer, of course, to that type of engagement. As you share things, it has the ability to flow across the network. I'm not talking about sharing things with your connections. Oh my gosh, please don't share with your connections. You're going to burn out those connections very, very quickly. I'm simply talking about sharing out to the feed in LinkedIn. And then the algorithm, the AI, the thing that determines your destiny is going to decide where your content goes. And it's going to try to put the content, think of my content, what I'm sharing. It's going to take my content and try to put it in front of some percentage of those 21 million people, whichever people it thinks might click on it, might like it, because that's all they care about is how to make money, and clicks make money. Begin to think about your network and all of that effect, building your network to the right level that will have a very different outcome for you. Your pool may be too small right now, and you may need to expand it. In your communications and in your shift to the new direction, it's all about the nuance, the excitement. Every single one of these, that figurative nudge that coaxes attention. So just want to share a few more things. I'll just let you look at some of these. Was up on stage with Reverend Jesse Jackson at Wall Street Project a few years back. Now, I did that 4 or 5 years. And you know what? Amazing to me how I ended up there was helping someone in a lecture over the summer that year, and gave them some words of advice on the resume. And a little bit later on in the summer, they called me and they said, I got my job. Thanks for the lectures. Really appreciate that. I'm over at Rainbow Push. You know what? We're at the national conference. I'd like to walk your book into the room. I'm like, what is your address? I am running out to FedEx right now. It's going to be in your hands tomorrow morning before 10:30, because I can connect the dots very, very quickly. I trusted it would get somewhere, that it might have some effect. And 6 months later, I found myself up on stage next to the Reverend Jesse Jackson going, well, how did I get here? It was 5 career coaches. I'm the only non-African-American, and I'm the only male. And I'm pinching myself going, but how did I get included? And wonderful opportunity, by the way. Opportunity is all around us at all times, even when we're in transition, which is very stressful. Well, that was a very stressful week for me. That was the week my father passed away. He was healthy as an ox up until the day before Christmas, and then got double pneumonia, 91 years old, picked up double pneumonia, probably because he was still, as a Catholic deacon, he was still doing hospital run. I'm like, Dad, you shouldn't be doing hospital run. But, you know, I can't tell him not to minister. I might as well tell him to get 6 feet under now. You know, he can't do that. And unfortunately picked up double pneumonia and gone in 26 days. So that was the week, flying down on the weekends to see my dad, and who was still in great spirits, by the way. You know, when your faith is that strong, boy, even at the end, it's a very different thing. No regret, just excitement. And he was so excited for this next week, going to be up on stage with Reverend Jesse Jackson. How does this happen? I'm like, amazing for you. I'm like, well, it's exciting, but my heart is ripped apart with what's going on. So that particular day, I had about 2.5 hours sleep. I'm glad the little picture of me is very, very small, because what you would notice is I look extremely stressed, obviously. the good and bad in life happens all at the same time. I mean, I'd love the opportunity to come along at the right time, but you have to be ready to react to it no matter when. So that was my chance. And it was going to be a roundtable discussion with these other coaches. We were each going to get, it was Q&A with the audience. We're each going to get then 12 minutes of our own time. Actually, the 12 minutes of our own time before the Q&A. And so I decided I knew exactly what this audience was going to need. You know, with my father as a Catholic deacon, I'm like, I think I need to go a little evangelical on this audience in as far as energy and pitch. And what I decided to do in 12 minutes was give a high-powered motivational speech. Hard-charging motivational speech about championing your individual brand and changing the equation. And I had 40 slides running nonstop, not like these slides where we're static here on occasion, nonstop behind me. And you know what? I got the very first question, and I got 30 to 35% of all of the questions on a week where I wasn't doing so good because of all the stress. You have to get in the game no matter what is happening to you. Other ones you may have taken a look at already. We'll look at some other things that might come up. Now, these are all about me, my profession, everything else, but really you have to showcase as much as you can. Even the top right one here has nothing to do with what I really do. That was a volunteer day where I took a day and went up to Albany to talk to lawmakers about funding for the library. By the way, John does not get funding from the library. That's volunteer work. So this is really to public service to go, get the funding for the safety net for society. It shows character. It shows me living and breathing. That's why it's there. A bunch of other fun stuff where you can look through all of this really at your own time. Thought I was getting punked. I got a phone call going, "Oh, you're in Essence Magazine." I'm like, "Who is this? Who is this?" Well, maybe I'm there. Maybe I should go look. This was 2012. Even in 2012, all those magazine stores in the city had already begun to disappear quite quickly. And then I couldn't find the magazine because Barack was on the cover. And then I finally did find it. And my gosh, there's my book. Highlight it right there on that right side of that magazine page. There's my book. There's my book. By the way, that's the gal, the shorter gal in the picture. That's the gal that got me into the magazine. She happened to be outside the library after one of my lectures and happened to mention, "Oh, I'm blogging about my job search for Essence Magazine." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you should have my book." I can connect the dots very quickly. I trusted it would get somewhere. And there it is. By the way, she's standing there talking to some other career coach. Don't look here. But my book is on the reading list. Learn to open doors. Life is not transactional. Well, if I do this, what do I get? I don't know. But I know what you'll get if you do the same thing you've been doing. So learn to open the doors and leave those doors open. That's how the Reverend Jesse Jackson Rainbow Push Wall Street Project came along. That's how Essence Magazine came along, and many other things you might see me in. Your job is to learn how to promote your career, promote your story. That's the true influence piece. So whatever it is that you begin to share, understand that every single thing that you share has an effect on elevating or hurting your brand. You have to choose very, very carefully. I love this shot. This is doing my boot camp a couple of years ago. That's about to move online permanently once I get the whole new site launched. But somebody snapped this picture while I was teaching it. And yep, I saw my father in that pose quite a lot of times growing up and into my adult life as well as a Catholic deacon. Here I am up at WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio. Now, I didn't make it into the shot, but my coffee made it there. My book made it there. That's a lot of fun, too. That's about 2 hours of drive time. And the beauty there is the host does not prepare anything. It is off the cuff. And, gosh, I'm pretty good off the cuff. So it's really a kind of a fun 2 hours. Just begin to think about your social media shares on top of changing the right resume, on top of changing your LinkedIn, on top of changing cover letter and our own mindset about ourselves. All those amount to an alignment of the dominoes. How is it that you're going to get all those dominoes to line up, the gentle nudges that really change the equation for you? Showcase your commitment, your energy, your passion, your drive, your excitement, and you have to own it more than anybody else. I hope you're going to be ready, and I hope you aren't afraid to kind of reinvent yourself. Whatever your first step is or your very next step, begin to take that. It's really going to help you. And in addition to these, if you do need help with your resume itself, your LinkedIn profile itself, don't hesitate to reach out. You can check all of my packages out over on selfrecruiter.com, just under the services tab. And if you'd like to talk before you dive right in, just send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to chat. and then we'll get going on reinventing your background. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Check out all the other lectures on my YouTube channel and over on Facebook. And starting next week in June, we are shifting to Tuesday and Wednesday lectures for the summer. So I will have all of those lectures posted over the course of this weekend, so you know what's coming up. But they'll be Tuesday at 5 over the course of the summer and Wednesday at noon over the course of the summer. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and we'll see you very, very soon. Take care.